Do you ever find yourself wondering if you're really maximizing your credit card setup in your wallet? That would be getting the best possible cash back for your spending, or maximizing your points and miles, or getting the most possible travel benefits for when you hit the road. Well, so do I. Probably a little too much, but that's neither here nor there. Today, I want to talk about 3 separate cards put together in a really powerful wallet setup. These 3 cards are cards that people absolutely love individually, but I never really see people talking about using these 3 together for a wallet strategy. This strategy could do exactly what I just talked about. Maximize a lot while not having to juggle that many different restrictions. The cards in use in this are the American Express Gold card, the Capital One Venture X, and the Citi Custom Cash. This trio is surprisingly powerful. Let me break it down exactly how to use it and where this strategy really can get good. As you probably know, there are certain credit card duos that are just overly talked about. I'm guilty of it too, and are just really popular all the same. The Chase trifecta is one, the Citi trifecta is a good one, the Amex trifecta, the Capital One duo. You hear these over and over and over, but honestly, when you stick to just one issuing bank, a lot of times there's some pretty big gaps in the setup that you just have to ignore, or you're willing to live with to hold the other benefits that the trifecta or duo may offer you. Of course, these banks don't want you to have it all. So if you get further into the credit card game, what a lot of people do is like to mix and match based on their personal wants and their own spending habits. That's where this really simple trifecta that we'll talk about today, mixing really powerful individual cards from different banks, could pay off in a big way for a lot of you out there. In this video, I want to run through 3 main sections. I'll break down the cards individually, talk about how the right person can use their synergies together to build out a really powerful wallet, and then be honest about the things I like and where there are still gaps in the setup that may not make it the setup for you. I'm going to get really specific with real numbers here to actually show you how powerful I believe this whole setup is. So let's get right in and look at the cards on an individual basis. I'll start by diving into the AmEx Gold. While this is not a new card, and if you've been keeping up with the channel, we've covered it pretty extensively for its best use cases. It has recently gotten a refresh, so let's focus on some of those newer benefits and how it plays here in 2024 going into 2025. The Gold card, of course, still earns those 4x back, 4x on dining up to a spending cap of $50,000, on groceries and supermarkets up to $25K in spend, 3x on flights, even the ones including booked directly with the airlines, 2x on hotels, car rentals, and cruises via Amex Travel, and a flat 1x back on everything else. The credits have increased, but they've gotten more consolidated in who can benefit the most out of them. The Amex Gold still has the $120 in Uber Cash and $120 in dining credits, but they recently added $100 in Resi and an $84 Dunkin' credit, with all of these being broken up monthly or semi-annually. The best fit for this card is someone who can access those credits to offset the high annual fee. The Gold card is now offered at a $325 annual fee, and especially benefits people who live in high population density areas and spend a ton on food and groceries. It usually sits at a base sign-up bonus of 60,000 points, but I've seen Amex really pushing the Gold recently, so make sure to check the link in the description below to see what you're specifically being targeted for. I've seen 90K offers, as well as even heard rumors of 100,000 point offers, plus money back for a limited time when you spend on dining. Next up is the Capital One Venture X. For those of you who follow this channel, this is my personal favorite premium travel credit card, and honestly, I think the #1 card as a single card that you can get today in the credit card world. You can watch a ton of other videos breaking down this card in extreme depth through the benefits and the negatives of it, so I'll just spend this time to run through it at a very high level. The Venture X earns 10x back on hotels when booked through that Capital One travel portal. I think is one of the best travel portals out there. It earns 5x miles back on flights when booking through the Capital One travel portal, as well as vacation rentals. Vacation rentals are relatively new. So if anybody uses the Venture X and has gotten the 5x back on vacation rentals when booking through the portal, let me know in the comments how that's gone, because I'm a little interested if that could be a really good value use for this card, not having done it yet myself. The card earns 2x miles back on everything else, and I'll really dive into this more when we talk on card synergy. Know that the credits are a massively valuable part of the Venture X. The $300 travel credit is super easy to use, and that renews every single year and knocks off a ton off of that annual fee. You can't forget about the 10,000 bonus miles after each account anniversary and a $120 global entry or TSA PreCheck credit. The awesome part about what this card can add to any wallet is it does have some of those upper level premium travel benefits. We're talking lounge access, we're talking increased rental status through Hertz, and a few other things that are just going to make your access and your experiences when you're traveling much, much nicer. Just between the Venture X and the AmEx Gold, you're already covering big spending categories with a lot of redemption power. But we're not stopping there for this strategy. The third card, and what I'm going to call the magic bullet card in this setup, is the Citi Custom Cash. 5% back on your top spending category. Now this is limited to $500 a month, but for most people, the way you're going to use this card, that will be just fine. The categories are super useful in and of themselves. You can look right now on the screen and run through them, but for everything that's not a top category spend, you'll be credited with just 1% back. But in this setup with the trifecta we'll be employing here in this video, you're not ever going to be redeeming for 1% back. There are no other credits or benefits with this card, and for being a simple cashback card, the annual fee is of course $0 as well. For any of the cards I mentioned, using the link below when you sign up, if you decide to go for any of them, really hugely benefits the channel. But I always encourage you to look for the best possible sign-up bonuses out there because we are all about maximizing what these cards can give to you at the end of the day. Let's talk about where this strategy could really shine for a lot of people with card synergy. I've categorized spending from the average American family in the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. This gives us really reliable spending data, and we can focus on where you could use each card in the setup to maximize potential spend. The incredible part about all of this is they're real numbers for average people, and you can see by deploying each of these three cards what your spending, cashback, and reward results would really be. I think this is where you're really going to start to be blown away by the power of this setup. You'll see it all ranked on the screen, starting with some of the highest spend areas, working your way down to the lower spend categories. As you can see, the Venture X does a ton of work here with its 2x miles back on everything, but also being used in some of those higher 10x and 5x categories. The AmEx Gold is going to earn you a ton of points. As people always say, it's the workhorse card. And I'm using family spending data here because this is a 3-card trifecta that sways heavily towards being more beneficial with the more people you have to feed. Food and grocery spending are simply just crazy these days, especially with inflation. For the right person who can use those credits, getting 4x back and what you can turn those points into with valuable redemptions through Amex can really make a huge difference. The Custom Cash is the perfect wild card here. Put it in the top spending category, get your 5% up to that $500 spend each billing cycle, and you're going to be in a really good place for maximizing your everyday spend. Now to put a bow on it, the numbers get really crazy for what this setup actually does for a family of 4. I used the Point Guy's latest valuations of Amex membership rewards points and Capital One miles. And when you put the spending and you divide the categories correctly amongst the cards to use, this setup would provide a whopping $3,467 back in cash value per year. That's equivalent to a flat 5.2% return on every single dollar a typical family of 4 spends. Imagine spending money knowing you're going to get over 5% back on whatever purchase you make just by optimizing your credit card lineup. That really blew my mind seeing it for the first time, even though theoretically I knew it all made sense because these cards have good multipliers in the right place. Now, a setup like this is really optimized, and that means no mistakes in swiping the wrong card at the wrong time. And it's also taking into account the Point Guy's evaluations for some of these cards, which I feel like are a little generous, but some of our expert travelers down in the comments or others in the credit card community can get that type of valuation for these points. Even if that's not you, you're getting a significant value back on your spend, and that I know makes a difference for an average family in today's world. Let me give you my final thoughts, where I really stand on this trifecta in the strengths and weaknesses. I'll say hands down, this is a good setup, and a lot of people I talk to in consulting, this is a great option for them depending on their family's spending patterns. Here are the best parts of this setup. It combines good earnings with some cool luxury benefits for the casual traveler. You do get lounge access for multiple people with the Venture X, increased car rental status, which can give you a little bit more room, especially if you are, again, traveling with multiple people, price drop protection, and special hotel perks and cool hotel access through different Capital One and American Express booking programs. The next benefit is you get incredible point diversity. You're earning some cash back, which is always great to have that to deploy immediately, but you've also got Capital One miles and Amex membership rewards points. This is not going to lock you into having to redeem those in a single way. You'll have a lot of flexible options on the back end of what to do with your points. And then finally, I know a lot of you are team travel, but I do appreciate the value of still earning a really high consistent category like 5% and getting that in cold hard cash. It's not weighing down your travel points and miles too much, but you're still getting a fantastic rate back. So in this case, I think the last benefit is your hybrid setup. Earning cash, but also earning points and miles for future use on travel is really the best of both worlds. Now here are the worst parts. Let's transition to the weaknesses of this setup. The first one I want to highlight is points diversity. Editor Rob and his wife, they're using this setup right now. When I talk through it with him, he loves the different earnings coming in, but sometimes you want to concentrate all of your earnings in the same points category because it can take much longer if you're going for a big trip or a big vacation to earn enough points to spend all of those in one redemption to pay for the entire trip itself. So this can be a good thing like I talked about with different transfer partners in the strengths, but it can also be a bad thing if you're not patient enough to let those points accumulate over time and fill up their respective buckets. The second weakness is definitely worth mentioning, and that is the $720 in annual fees. Now, for both of these cards, I do feel like there are great use cases where people have really reduced the effective annual fee that they're paying. However, I know a lot of you out there, you just don't like taking on annual fees, and I totally get that. It is certainly an upfront obligation that you then have to earn back through the value the rest of the year. And sometimes you don't want to have to work for that, or you don't want to be on the border of not getting your money's worth when it's all said and done. I think the numbers show that there is a huge margin between the annual fee and what you could get out on the other side. But as always, in any credit card setup, you have to go with what you're comfortable with and what works for you or your family. Finally, the last point I want to talk through is card management. As someone who is constantly growing my own wallet and working with my wife to optimize our own spending, I know all the difficulties firsthand of making sure we're both using the correct cards for the right situation. These are relatively easy to manage without having to activate rotating categories or think too hard about what card is right for the right situation, but still, it's 3 different banks with 3 different issuers, and you'll be managing your finances across 3 different applications to make sure you're managing your bills and paying those on time and tracking your rewards. That is certainly something that you have to be willing to take on if you go with this type of wallet. All in all, at the end of the day, I don't think this setup gets talked about as much as it should. It has really high potential, as you just heard, and for a lot of you, I think it could be a great foundation to start with as you build out your wallet. If you're rocking with a similar version of the setup, I'd love to hear how it's going for you, but my bet is it's probably going pretty good because these are 3 awesome cards. However, if you're still skeptical, make sure to watch the next 2 videos up, my full review of the Venture X and the full breakdown of the AmEx Gold. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video.